So today's guest is Caroline, Head of Sales and Marketing for IQ offices in Canada, but she's also Marketing Director for FLOC, which is the Future Leaders of Coworking. So we talk a lot about different types of coworking and where it all goes and how the industry is and where we hope it will end up. But we also spend a big chunk talking about building your career in co-working and how Future Leaders of Coworking can help you do that. It's a very new thing, but it's going to be around a very long time. And a lot of people like me are looking at this going, I wish that was around when I got into co-working. One particular thing I want to draw your attention to, as well as the LinkedIn co-working group, is the LinkedIn petition. FLOC are leading the charge on getting everybody to fill in the change.org petition, which are then going to send to LinkedIn and say, mate, can we have a drop-down menu and identify our business category as, or our industry category as co-working? Because right now, intergalactic shoemaking is a drop-down category on LinkedIn, but co-working isn't. So I think that's enough for me. Let's speak to Caroline. Hi, folks, and welcome to today's Co-working Values podcast. And in the studio is Caroline. Caroline, what are you known for, and what would you like to be known for?
Hi, Bernie. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at IQ Offices. So we're a Canadian owned and operated co-working space, and we have 8 locations across Canada. I'm also the Director of Marketing at FLOC. And so I've been in the co-working industry for just over 3.5 years now. What am I known for? Honestly, it might sound simple, but I'm known as someone who makes things happen. You know, in the first half of my career so far, I was very much an executor. You could give me any sort of task, challenge, project, and I would do whatever it takes to get the result we need. And, you know, in the last 3.5 years, I've been doing the same, but just building a team that will do that. So, yeah.
Do you like finishing things? Is that what makes you good?
I do. Yep. I will do anything to get to the end. And, you know, I've had a ton of experience kind of pivoting and dealing with unexpected things that come up and just waiting through, you know, whatever challenge comes up. And I get a lot of satisfaction from completing something, even if it ends up, you know, being a different result than you've set out to take. Or to get to initially. So,
and I know what you did, but I've got to ask for the benefit of the podcast listeners. What did you study at uni?
Yeah, so I have a background in psychology and communications. I always knew that I wanted to get into marketing, but I came to Canada as an international student. And, you know, as you know, business school is a little bit more on the pricey end. So I set out to study something that I feel like would still give me that stepping stone into marketing, and psychology and communications just felt like the best way to do it. And yeah, the rest is history.
So what is it that, what have you ever considered, like, why you are so complete a finisher, like getting things done? Like that's a very valuable energy to have.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I've always been a little bit like that. I very much love a process. I love, you know, having a to-do list and crossing things off as I go. I love, you know, thinking strategically through something and taking the time to really build out, you know, where do we want to go and what will it take to get us there. And I think the word that I always use for myself in that sense is being intentional. So I never do anything just for the sake of doing it. It has to make sense for me. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm going to take the time to figure out, why doesn't it make sense? And is there a way to do things differently? Is there a way to look at it from a different angle? So I'm always just thinking and planning and strategizing. My brain's the wheels are always turning.
Because like, I love having like big ideas, and then I get to this is why I'm so like drilling down on this, and then I get to the end. So when I'm writing an article, I have this like huge idea, and then I have to like cut things out, and then I get to the article, the last 10%. The first bit takes me like a day, and the last 10% will take me like a week. And I'm intrigued at what happens there. But like, which is there a bit of everything you just said there where you just get bored or check out or hope someone would come and take it off your plate?
No, not really. I think because I'm so, detailed when it comes out to planning kind of the result or what I'm hoping to get out of something, I always know or have an idea of what the next step is. And even if, something doesn't go the way I expect or anything like that, I've had enough experience now to be able to be flexible in that sense and pivot if I need to. And because I love being so strategic and planning everything out, sometimes I do need to take a step back and think, okay, let's not get too nitty gritty. What's the big picture we're looking at? And I always make sure that I'm not getting too focused on the step by step and that I'm still staying flexible to think of those big ideas and still, somewhat be a visionary, because if you get too focused on where you're going and what you need to do to get there, you sometimes lose sight of maybe we need to change where we're going. Maybe we need to change what we set out to achieve. So it's always kind of a balance of, planning and being strategic, but also still having that larger vision and having those out of the box ideas pop up.
So, think about everything you said there. Like when you moved, like where were you when you decided to move from Belgium to Canada? Were you like?
Yeah, so I actually went to high school in Paris. So I moved around a lot as a kid, and I finished high school in Paris, and I just felt like I wanted to get out in the world and go somewhere I'd never been. And I had some older friends that had moved to Canada, and they really loved it. And so with always having in the back of my mind that I want to be open to the things that I don't know and the things that I might not have expected or set out for myself, I pulled the plug and I was like, I'm moving to Canada, even though I've never been there.
And was it like a quick thing to organise? Like me and my wife moved country, and we decided at Christmas, and we in 6 months we'd relocated, and it was just like a quick pull the plaster off thing. But
Yeah, it was kind of the same for me. I remember senior year of high school thinking, okay, what are my options? Maybe the UK, maybe somewhere else in Europe, or maybe Canada. And Canada at the time felt like the most unknown. It was the furthest away. I didn't have any family there. I had never even vacationed there. So to me, at that point in time, it felt like the most exciting. So I leaned into the unknown aspect of it and decided to move. And 10 years later now I'm still here, which at that time, if you would have asked me, I would have said, oh, I'm going for university, I'll be back in Europe in 4 years. But sometimes that's the path that you're on will just take you somewhere you didn't expect. And I'm so happy that I stayed open to that and ended up here.
I've got to find a way to start talking about FLOC, and I can't think of it, so I'm just going to abruptly start talking about FLOC. Something you said before we came on is, that how you can you say how you got into the co-working industry before I explain your life for you.
For sure, yeah. So after I graduated university, I worked in home improvement and multi-residential real estate for a bit, all doing marketing. And honestly, I met a recruiter. They were looking for someone in co-working at IQ, someone to do the marketing. And to be honest with you, at that point, I had no idea what co-working was. So I truly, truly stumbled into it. But what's funny is I hear that from people all the time. And so now I've been in co-working 3.5 years. I've been working with FLOC for just under 6 months now. I first met Sam Shea, the founder of FLOC, and she kind of walked me through what she was trying to do. And really her goal was to build this peer-led community where all sorts of people in the industry could come together and build a community and learn from each other and network and share experiences. And at the point that I met with her, I had gotten quite a bit of experience in co-working, and I had gotten some exposure to other people in co-working, but it was mostly through our CEO, Kane Wilmot, and he had introduced me to some other CEOs and some other founders of other co-working operators. And as much as I got out of those conversations, I was kind of lacking those relationships with other people in the industry who were at my level, people who I could talk to about the day-to-day things that were happening and the challenges, and share what kind of mistakes and what we've learned from them. And so immediately when Sam walked me through what she was starting, I was totally on board. And we always joke I'm kind of like the poster child for FLOC, because since I've joined, I've completely expanded my network. I've made so many connections. I got to go to my first conference this year, GCUC Boston, and I walked away from it with so many valuable insights. And some of the people that I met at that conference, I've already gotten on calls with, over the last few months to share what they're doing on the marketing side, and I've shared what I've been doing, and so I'm kind of like the prime example of the benefits that can come from being part of a group like FLOC.
What's it? As you were setting out, like you've said it a little bit there, but and we were talking about it before you came on. Is like you get introduced to lots of people, but very few peers, because a lot of the time at conferences it is the the owner, the founder, the head of this, rather than the community manager. And like how can you navigate that in this industry?
Yeah, I think what we're doing with FLOC is kind of filling that hole that we noticed. So I experienced it firsthand. I didn't have the opportunity to make those connections, even though everyone knows how valuable they are. And so Sam realized that, and that's why she set out to start FLOC. And the feedback we've gotten from members when we ask, what are you hoping to get out of FLOC? And so far, what have you gotten the most value from? I would say about 80% of our members say it's the peer-to-peer connections. And what we've noticed is even at conferences, in the evenings, there's a lot of dinners, there's a lot of, CEOs, founders that get together, that have things to do. But for the people who are earlier in their career, some of them, haven't really in the past had an opportunity to do anything in the evenings, or go to a dinner or make those connections. And so even at GCUC Boston, we organized what we call the FLOC Tail. You'll hear lots of bird puns from us at FLOC. That's kind of our thing now. But we organized a FLOC Tail, and we had double the amount of people show up. And again, the feedback was like, it's so nice to be able to have a place to come to after a conference to really chat with the people that you might have seen on LinkedIn, or you might have been on an email with, but really make those face-to-face connections.
That's a lot of what happens in co-working in London. And something that has happened is people see each other online, and they think the other person is cooler than they actually are. And then when they meet in real life, they go, "Oh, you're human," because the great Bernie Mitchell online is like very amazing, and then in real life I'm quite mediocre. And I think it kind of breaks down a lot of barriers. And this happened in COVID, when we did a load of I wouldn't have called it at the time, but like crisis calls where we couldn't meet in person, so everyone would jump on a Zoom call at midday for half an hour, just to go like, what's happening in your space? Mm-hmm. And people would come to that, and they were just in such a, this is 2020, they're in such a very tight situation with their business. They'd just be like, I know, I just need help. And other people would say, like, I didn't know you needed any help. It's like me saying, Caroline, you look like you have it all together. Well, not quite as together as I mentioned. And it
Yep.
just leveled the whole playing field, and people connected. The people that
Oh,
came to those calls connected in a way that has just still got them together today.
Oh, 100%. And I have to tell you, I've been so pleasantly surprised to see at FLOC how vulnerable our members have gotten. And I thought that was maybe something we would have to push a little bit. But honestly, that came so naturally. Everyone has been so willing to share their experiences and share their mistakes and their learnings. And it's just such a nice atmosphere to be a part of because it makes everyone feel like you said, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and if we can share something that we've learned, maybe that'll save the next person from making that same mistake.
What do you hope happens in FLOC in the next 6 months? I know it's all on your website, but for the people that are never going to get to your website, what's your big,
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
company policy, but the brand policy, but like, as in, what does Caroline want for it?
Yeah. So it's very exciting because now we're expanding to the UK. So Sam and I and a few of our flock members will be at GCUC London. So we're really excited to be in the UK, make connections there, see who wants to join flock from across the pond. But really, for me, what I'm most excited about is spreading the awareness. I think we've gotten a good amount of members so far, but there's just so much more potential. There's thousands of people across North America, across the UK, and everywhere else in the world that work in co-working and that are passionate about this fast-growing industry. And so we really just want to spread the word, whether it's to try and get more members or to try and just get more people involved as workshop leaders or as mentors. There's just so much potential. And for me, as the marketing person at FLOC, it's all just about how do we get that message across and in front of people, and how can we really show the value of it? Because until you've been part of one of our calls, and we have monthly calls at FLOC that we call Chirp and Chat, another bird pun, of course, where we really it's optional. Members get on a call and we just chat about what's been going on. What is everyone focused on? What is everyone excited about that they're working on? And from that, I feel like we've sparked a ton of ideas. Even for myself, I've walked away with those calls thinking, oh, you know what? Like, this person mentioned something that they're doing in their space, and I really want to talk to my operations team about that. So it's all just about sharing, and I'm a huge proponent of knowledge sharing in the industry. So far, from what I've seen, everyone is super, super willing to share information. You just have to ask them. And this kind of opens that door to give the opportunity to ask people.
I feel there's more sharing going on. I feel, and some people listening to this may disagree, that at the beginning, everyone shared. Then they all basically, from 2010 to 2020, people stopped sharing, and now they're sharing again. And I hope that carries on. I want to give a little shout out. We're going to put a link in the show notes to James Panapino, who is in Clockwise, I think it is, in Manchester, and he's your man in the UK, isn't he? From across the pond, as you say.
Yep.
So you said this, like, this is I don't want to misquote you, like fast moving, fast growing industry. Like, how do you, not so much where the industry is, but like, what do you think, all those little conversations and interactions you get, what's the kind of thing that you think people, particularly people who are kind of starting out or finding a career, all those people that I didn't set out to get into co-working, and here I am. Like, I would have loved to have, when I left uni, I wish I'd wandered into co-working by accident. It's a great place to wander. It's much nicer to wander into co-working than, an event company and be stacking up glasses at 1:00 in the morning,
Yeah, I think we, as people in the industry, it's our duty to reframe, I think, the word co-working. We talked a little bit about this before, but I think there's still a lot of misconception about what co-working really is. What comes to mind for a lot of people is, it's hot desks, day passes, it's people hanging out in lounges. But really, it's that, but also 1,000 other things. It's also, a 40-person private office with amenities that are exclusive. And so, this is a good segue into what we're actually trying to do with FLOC is we're trying to get co-working as a label on LinkedIn. And there's been a lot of debate about, well, is co-working the right word to use? Should we be saying service offices? Should we be saying flexible workspace? And I think all those words are super valid. And there are a lot of nuances in our industry, but we have to start somewhere. And co-working feels like very much a good umbrella word to start with. And I think we have to just spread the word about what that really means. And even for myself, I mean, when I used to talk to my friends or I used to meet new people and they asked what I did for work, I would say, oh, I work in co-working. And then, a lot of the time I was met with a blank stare, and my next response would be, oh, do you know WeWork? Half the time they would say yes, half the time they would say no. And if they would say yes, I would say, oh, well, I work for a competitor. And then as I, stayed in the industry longer, I thought to myself, that's actually such a horrible way to describe it. Like, I'm doing a disservice to the industry. So I completely changed my thought process to that. And now when I have to explain to someone what co-working is, I actually take the time to explain it. And to my surprise, once you actually do that, a lot of people get it. Then you start getting responses like, oh, yes, like I'm sure after COVID, that's become really popular. Companies see the value in hybrid work and having a flexible space. And then you really start to get the responses that make you think people will get it. People will get it if you just explain it.
Yeah, there's a massive, there always is, but education piece for people outside the industry.
Yes.
And there's this, everything you just said, plus it's how business is nowadays, because if you think about how LinkedIn is now and how it was when basically LinkedIn used to, 20 years ago was an online CV, and it was always very businessy. Hello, I'm in business. It was like this kind of apprentice Shark Tank businessy thing, and now it's much more fluid and connected. And with all this is a whole new podcast in itself, but like the future of work and how we'll all live in communities and stuff, and business is a very, very different thing nowadays. And it's the entry level not the entry level, like the ability to start a business is like, I've never tried this, but apparently you can just start a business from your phone. You can set up a bank account and, do your tax and set up a CRM system. But, it's just much easier to get in there. I'm rambling now. So I meant to ask just halfway through that last statement. Where do you think is co-working is going? I think even more so, where do you think it's going? Like, what would you like to see in co-working in the future?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of co-working spaces really lean into their niche and really figure out what they want to offer and to who. I mean, even at IQ, we've done a ton of data analysis specifically this year to really dig into, okay, who are our member companies and why have they chosen IQ? And what we've realized is currently 84% of our revenue is coming from enterprise clients. And we have decided to really lean into that. And on the marketing side, that means figuring out, okay, enterprise clients, what are they looking for? What problem are we solving for them? And then how can we change our messaging on the website, in our proposals, even, verbally when these companies come for a tour, to really drill down and make sure that we're showing them that we can offer what they need. And, there's an example that always comes to mind that happened this year. And it was a medium-sized business that had been with IQ for a few years, and they actually left because of their cost-saving strategy. But at the same time, we had one of those enterprise companies come in, and they were looking for a co-working space because of their cost-saving strategy. So it was such a funny coincidence that at the same time, we had two companies, one leaving, one going, but for the exact same reason. And so for us, that was just an obvious answer as to, okay, and for us, in the locations that we have, enterprise clients are understanding our value proposition. So we need to lean into that. And we don't need to try and offer every single workspace solution that's out there, because that doesn't make sense. And then we're just diluting our offer, diluting our value that we're bringing, because on a space level, we'll just have way too many priorities and problems that we're trying to fix. Because for us, enterprise clients are looking for something very different than, the startups or the small businesses. So future state, I think we're going to see spaces no longer, focus on fast Wi-Fi and good coffee. Everybody has that. We're at that point in the industry where that's a given. That's expected. You don't even have to say that, because every space should have that at this point. But I think we'll really see spaces lean into what they do best and, the audience that they're trying to reach.
That's my hope too. That's been my hope for a long time. Because and then sometime last week or this week, I was talking to Dean Cannell, who's a designer he's actually from Lewisham in London, and he did he was one of the original designers with WeWork, and he's just got this like huge experience, and he's very deep in the way he thinks about things. And he says everyone's sort of like, I don't want to misquote him because it's very sensitive, but it's like everyone looks the same, and the way forward is to like people be able to tell the difference between you and somebody else. And niching down is a bit of a marketing cliche, but like actually niching down so people can tell the difference between you and someone else. Do you know that marketing thing where if someone took the label off your brand and put someone else's on, and I think there's too many spaces that look exactly the same nowadays, and they're not doing anything wrong, but you need to be able to, tell your cost of coffee from your Starbucks.
Exactly.
So where is we'll put a link to the LinkedIn campaign, which I just really want to succeed, because like something like intergalactic marine shipping is in the drop down menu, but co-working isn't.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Where's the best place to connect with you and follow you and get involved online?
Yeah. I would say follow FLOC on LinkedIn. That's where we're currently most active. We're always posting what we're up to, what upcoming workshops we have. We do a ton of member spotlights. We love putting our members at the forefront and sharing who they are and what they're up to and what they're involved in. And then you can find our petition on change.org. We just hit 400 signatures, which is exciting. Woo. But we're pushing, we're pushing to get that to 1,000. And at that point, we want to take it to LinkedIn and see what kind of response we get. But, I think it's for anyone, even if you're not working in the co-working industry, if you're working in a co-working space or you have some sort of connection to co-working, we want your signature. There's just 400 is like a drop in the bucket of what we should get. There's thousands and thousands of people globally that have some sort of connection to co-working. And really, it all comes down to just, we want to attract people into this industry and we want to retain people in this industry. And like I said, I stumbled into it, but I've really enjoyed working in the co-working industry, and I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. But for a lot of people, sometimes that career trajectory is not 100% obvious. And sometimes it's easier currently to switch to another industry because you can filter for those jobs on LinkedIn. So we really want to continue pushing this and hope to get those numbers up so we can really make something happen here.
Brilliant. That was exactly what I wanted to say. Where can we meet you folks in person? What events are you all wandering to for flock tales and shenanigans?
So a few of us will be at GCUC London in October, as well as I'll be at GWA Chicago, as well as Coworking Canada, which I'm so excited about because it's here in Toronto, where I'm based out of, at the end of September. But like I said, FLOC is meant to be collaborative and inclusive. So, all of our members and board members, LinkedIn messages are always open. So anyone can shoot us a message if you're looking for more information or to get involved. We'd love to chat.
I thought you were going to say Co-working Canada in Toronto at the end of my street, and then you said end of September. But that would be really.
You know what? It's very close to where I'm living. I'm right downtown. So, and actually, IQ, we're hosting the closing reception. So, very excited to get everyone into our newest space here in Toronto.
Oh, you should have led with that. That was. I'm glad we had that little afterthought there. Anyway.
Yeah, I left the best for last.
Ace, really appreciate your time and attention today, Caroline. We are going to get to those show notes. There's going to be links to all those events and I've forgotten what I was going to say now. All those events and petitions. And the other event I want to get on your radar, which we do every year, this will be like the 5th year we've gone, in February at the Workspace Design Show in the Business Design Centre in London. We'll be gathering, and mainly that's a kind of London co-working assembly thing, but people come from all over Europe. So it's a great little get together. You can talk about co-working and try the latest coffee machine, phone booth, or coffee maker, or acoustics is my favorite thing there. And that is, we'll put a link in the show notes to that, and that's about mid-February. And also there is the LinkedIn co-working group. We'll post this podcast in there, and Caleb and Suzanne and Fanny and Mr. Mark Navarro himself sometimes post this podcast in there. But wherever you are in the world, be careful out there. It's a jungle. Say goodbye, Caroline.
Thanks so much, Bernie. It was great chatting with you today.